So, hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to this session with us. Over last 1 year, it's been an eventful year for debt mutual funds. Debt or fixed income asset class, as it is meant to give you a peaceful sleep and not sleepless nights. But unfortunately, the macro event is such that even this stable asset class has given some unwarranted pain to lot many investors in recent times. However, despite that challenges, investors continue to invest in debt mutual funds with more than 12 lakh crore AUM invested across debt mutual fund schemes by more than 64 lakh investors. And investors continue to have faith in this asset class. They continue to invest in quality debt mutual funds and have largely benefited by these funds over the last many years. So today with us we have Ms. Radhika Gupta, MD and CEO of Edelweiss Mutual Fund, to share her views and guide us on how one should look at this asset class. And especially we'll talk about the upcoming, the recently launched Bharat Bond ETF, India's first corporate bond ETF, which is launched by Edelweiss Mutual Fund along with the Government of India. So welcome, Radhika.
Thank you. I think you can see me now. So very good to be here, everybody.
Yes. Yeah, Radhika, I can see you now. So good afternoon, Radhika. So my first question to you is, what are the benefits of investing in a debt mutual fund, and what is the purpose of this asset class in the overall portfolio? What purpose it solves in one's portfolio?
See, I think if we step back and when we think about money, the most important thing in money, and investors have probably heard this again and again, but it's boring but still worth saying, is asset allocation. And asset allocation means basically just like we have a balanced diet, we have some vegetable, we have some dairy, we have some grain. Your portfolio also needs to be balanced. While you have growth asset classes that are equity largely, and it's important to have equity, debt is a very essential part of your portfolio. And it is my fundamental belief that every portfolio is incomplete without debt. And until debt mutual funds are something you embrace, your mutual fund investing journey, in my view, is very, very incomplete. Why do you need an asset class like debt? Well, because you have periods like the one we saw in 2020. Equity markets will give you 12, 15, 10 to 12%, but it will not be 10, 10, 10 every year. There will be good years and bad years. So you need some amount of protection in your portfolio, and that comes by way of debt. And it's very important to have debt. And maybe we can talk about this later in the session, but there are different kinds of debt. You have money that you need for 3 months, you have money that you need for 6 months, you have money that you need for 1 year, you have money that you could need for longer. So debt plays a very important part in your portfolio. Now, there are two good things, and debt mutual funds have been in focus for a long time, especially in the last 2 years. But I would encourage everyone on this call to embrace debt mutual funds with an open mind, regardless of the news and noise around it. I think there are two distinctly important things about debt mutual funds. One is that they give you a lot of options. So everything from an overnight fund, which is 1 day, all the way till very long-term funds like some of the ones we are launching in Bharat Bond. And whether you want to invest for 1 day or whether you want to invest for 10 years, you have those options, and you have them with very high degrees of liquidity. So unlike a deposit where you park your money and there are breakage penalties and all that, debt mutual funds are very cost efficient and liquid. The second thing to keep in mind is that debt mutual funds have a significant advantage of taxation. And some of that we can illustrate in Bharat Bond. But when you do a traditional investment, you pay a marginal rate of tax, which is usually 30%. With debt mutual funds, after 3 years, you get the benefit of indexation. That means if your return is, say, 5.5% after fees, and the rate of inflation, which is a benchmark you can use, take 4%, 5.5 minus 4 is 1.5. On 1.5, you will pay 20% tax. So that's 0.3% of tax. So 5.5 minus 0.3 again is 5.2 post tax. In a traditional instrument, that probably number would look like 4. So you have to look at debt mutual funds simply because of the tax advantage they have. I think we all work very hard to earn the money that we have, and our money should work harder than us. And if there are constructs that let us earn money safely in a tax efficient way, we must use them.
Right. Thank you, Radhika. Now the important question is why suddenly few debt mutual funds have turned sour for investors, and what kind of debt funds these were. Is it a right way to look all debt funds in the same lens?
See, I think when you look at debt mutual funds, you have to look at them in two lenses. See, every instrument that you do has risk. Every equity risk is something that we all understand. Now, debt mutual funds have two kinds of risk, and then I'll talk about the incident. One is credit risk, and the second is duration risk. What is debt? Debt is a lending transaction. I am lending money to you, Niranjan, as a borrower. Now, if you are a good quality borrower, if you are the government of India, hopefully you'll pay me my money back because governments don't default. Many good borrowers also don't. If you are a poorer quality borrower, maybe the chances of my getting my money back are lower, and hence I will demand a higher rate of interest to lend to you. This is what we call credit risk. The second kind of risk is duration risk. As you know, bond prices fluctuate when interest rates move up and down. I'll give you a small illustration of that to make this practical. Assume I had a bond that was paying a 5% rate of interest and it was worth 100 rupees. Tomorrow, if interest rates went to 6%, my 5% wala bond would become significantly less valuable. So debt funds have duration risk. The longer the maturity, the more they'll fluctuate with interest rates. The incidents that you've seen in the last few months are incidences that cover credit risk. These were a small, and I would highlight again, small segment of the mutual fund industry that are called credit risk funds, or whether they are credit risk funds or there are other categories of funds that invest in lower credit quality paper. So typically, if you look at these portfolios, the credit quality would not be AAA, which is the highest credit quality. It would be A or single A. And for this, you would get a higher yield. So the events that have happened in credit risk funds. Not all funds are credit risk funds. Not all debt funds are credit risk funds. In fact, a majority of them are not. So it is not fair to extrapolate the events of one fund to everything else that has happened in the debt fund industry. It is important to understand these two risks that we talked about, credit risk and duration risk, however, whenever you're doing debt investing.
Now, just a follow-up question to this. So how one should look at debt funds, and so if I want to invest for maybe a month, or someone wants to invest for a year, how one should choose a debt fund? What are those 3-4 things which one should look at?
So I think there are two things that you should look at in debt funds. One is the credit quality, and that you can look at in any debt fund. As I said, for retail investors and most investors, debt is not a place where you take large amounts of risk. It's a safety asset class. You don't want to take huge amounts of risk. So you should look at the credit quality. Now, how do I judge credit quality? Well, ratings is a good proxy. I mean, I know people say things about ratings, but ratings is a good proxy. AAA rated is the highest. The other thing that you can do is look at the portfolio. Mutual funds disclose the portfolio on a monthly basis on our website. And I don't think enough investors actually look at these portfolios. See the names. If you see things like NABARD or National Highway Authority of India or REC or HDFC, I mean, these are companies you feel comfortable with. The certainty of knowing the name will give you a lot of comfort. That's a second way to look at it. So I think that's one thing you should do. Now, the second thing you should do is, because debt funds have duration risk, you should try and match the tenure of the debt fund to your goals. We don't invest randomly. We invest for certain goals. So if you have 3-month goals, try to buy a debt fund with 3-month duration. If you have 5-year goals, try to buy a debt fund that is structured for 5 years. I have a simple framework that I like to use for debt investing. Because there are so many categories of mutual funds, I divide my money into 3 portions. One portion is money that I need in less than 3 months, and I would buy liquid and overnight funds of any good AMC, any top 20 AMC. Buy liquid and overnight funds. They're good. Nothing to worry about. Then there is money I need between 3 months and 3 years. I like to use arbitrage funds. They are actually equity funds in SEBI classification, but they behave like debt. So I like to use arbitrage funds for that. They tend to be very tax efficient, 15% tax before 1 year, 10% tax after 1 year, or you can use low duration kind of funds. And above 3 years, I like to use funds like perhaps we'll talk about these Bharat Bond like funds because they manage duration. They're basically target maturity funds where they buy bonds and hold them for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So depending on my time horizon, I just manage funds accordingly. So that's how I like to think about it.
Got it. Now moving to your favorite topic, Bharat Bond ETF. The first series was launched in December last year and it saw huge success. And this is the next series which we are launching. What exactly is Bharat Bond ETF and how it is different from any other debt mutual fund? So if you can just tell us what is this all program about and how they are different from a normal mutual fund.
So Bharat Bond ETF is an initiative of Government of India. It was actually announced by late FM Arun Jaitley about 2 years ago, and it had the vision to bring to retail and Indian investors a simple debt product that they could trust. And it also was a way to get some of our largest PSU borrowers, who we refer to as our Navratnas or Maharatnas, to access retail investors because it's very difficult for them to do so. Edelweiss AMC won the mandate to launch this with Government of India about a year ago, and we launched the first one in December 2019. Now, what does Bharat Bond ETF do for an investor? I think when an investor is investing in debt, as we talked about, there are two things they really need. One is safety. I mean, we've talked about this a lot on this call because of the concerns around credit risk, but I think safety is very important. Bharat Bond invests in only AAA rated central public sector enterprises. So these are companies that are owned and managed by the Government of India. I would highlight again, owned and managed by the Government of India, and highest rated companies, only AAA rated companies. So in terms of credit quality, these are some of the safest companies that you can make investments in. So it solves the safety problem. The second thing that you need is predictability of return. जब आप जाके FD करते हैं, when you are an FD investor, you like to know कि if I am investing तो इतने साल के लिए invest किया तो कितना मिलेगा? How much will I get in so many years? I call this thing predictability of returns. Bharat Bond has a target maturity structure, as I said. There are different tenures of Bharat Bond. So we launched a 2023 and a 2030. Now we are launching a 2025 and a 2031. This means like the 2025 today will buy bonds maturing in 2025 and hold them to maturity. What this means is that that whole duration risk thing that I talked about actually goes away if you're holding till maturity, because it's like a bond. You buy and hold it till maturity. So Bharat Bond gives you predictability of returns. It also gives you the tax efficiency of mutual funds, which we've talked about. It's completely liquid. It doesn't have any breakage penalties. And this comes at very low cost to the investors, which is 0.0005%. So for a 2 lakh investor, you're paying 1 rupee in management fees. It's actually the cheapest mutual fund product in the world.
Right. So just extending this, conversation, why then ETF? What ETF structure brings to the table, and why not a simple mutual fund structure but an ETF?
So I think an ETF, what is an ETF? An ETF is a way to do rule-driven investing. We run a mutual fund business, and mutual funds are great, but mutual funds ultimately, the fund manager takes an active call as to which securities to buy, what not to buy, whether it's AAA, whether it's AA. Of course, there are guidelines, but within that, there's quite a bit of space. ETF is rule driven. So ETF has something called an index, and an index is a set of rules. Our indices for Bharat Bond are published by NSE India. So the Bharat Bond 2025 will have an NSE Bharat Bond, Nifty Bharat Bond 2025 index and a Nifty Bharat Bond 2031 index. The index says that these are the securities I can buy. So they have to be AAA, they have to have a certain amount of liquidity, etc., etc. They have to be CPSC. So it is a predefined set of rules and a predefined portfolio, and the ETF's job is to replicate the index. So this gives you a couple of things. One, it gives you complete surety of what you're going to hold because there is an index and you can't deviate from the index within the SEBI guidelines. Secondly, an ETF brings a lot of transparency to it. In a mutual fund, your holdings are public once a month. In an ETF, they're public every day. You know everything that's going on about the ETF every day. It's AUM, its costs, its portfolio, everything is public. And third, An ETF trades on the exchange, so if you've traded stocks, you're very familiar with it. You can trade it anytime. And ETFs tend to be very, very low cost. So these are the things that ETFs bring over mutual funds.
Now, when it comes to debt investing, one of the most important parameters for all of us Indians is predictability of returns. When I invest in an FD, I know that I'll be getting a 6% or 7% interest rate. But usually, when we invest in a mutual fund, that predictability is not there. However, we have heard that Bharat Bond ETF tries to manage this very beautifully, and you just alluded to the predictability of returns. Now, in the upcoming series of Bharat Bond ETF, or any time in future when someone is investing in Bharat Bond ETF, how should an investor identify that how much return he should get, and to get that return, what is expected from the investor?
This is, I think, a very important question because predictability of returns is very important. So, as I said, both Bharat bonds have indices. Now, what you should do before investing is you can go to bharatbond.in. That's again, I'll repeat, bharatbond.in, and you will get the indicative yield of the index. So, like if you look for the current series, it's probably 5.5 for the shorter one and 6.5 for the longer one. This is the yield you will realize if you are a hold to maturity investor. So it gives you a good indication, I would say, within 5 to 10 basis points of the kind of yield that you will realize. This is, however, if you hold till maturity. So an investor has to buy and hold on, because the ETF will also just buy and hold. If you exit in the middle, depending on whether interest rates move up and down, you may get more or less in this. But if you are a hold to maturity 5 or 11-year investor, as in the case for these two ETFs, then you should realize the yield. And this is not just for the NFO. Even after that, anytime you're investing, you can just look at the yields and make a decision.
Right. In the current debt environment, safety is very, very important. While you mentioned that these are AAA rated Government of India owned companies, there are some other mutual funds also, or portfolios which invest in AAA rated bonds. So how this is very different from that, and what is around the safety aspect. So if in future some of these AAA rated gets downgraded, so what kind of safety net it is there for an investor investing in Bharat Bond ETF?
So I will take your question in two parts. One, we'll talk about the safety. Second, we'll talk about the comparison to some of the other mutual fund categories. So I think in terms of safety, as I said, you are investing in quasi-sovereign companies. These are the highest rated public sector enterprises, and they're only public sector enterprises. These are the largest borrowers, the most liquid borrowers in the market. There is a question, what if someone gets downgraded? If any borrower gets downgraded, then, as I said, these companies come out of the index and they come out of the ETF in an orderly way. Do remember, your starting point is AAA. So if a downgrade happens, it happens to AA plus. So that's not such a bad level of downgrade. Even a AA plus bond is a very good bond. So exiting should not be a problem. Now, maybe we can compare this to something like corporate bond funds or bank PSU mutual funds. Bank PSU funds have a similar universe, but they also have banks. You can have multiple ratings there, and 20% of the universe can be outside bank PSU. Here, you're very certain that your universe is only going to be AAA CPSC. Corporate bond funds have the flexibility of being AAA and AA, and they don't necessarily have to be PSU. So I think that's the critical difference. So I think in terms of safety after GSEC funds, this is probably the highest safety MF instrument in terms of credit safety.
Right. Now coming to the existing or the recently launched Bharat Bond ETF series, what are the options and avenues available for the investors? And since it is ETF, what if someone doesn't have a demat account? If you can throw some light on these.
Yes, and we understand that a lot of investors do want to invest but without a demat account. So there are two fund of funds available. A fund of fund is basically a mutual fund that just buys the ETF. So if you have a demat account, you please buy the ETF. If you don't have a demat account, you buy the fund of funds. The fund of funds has a cost of 0.05%. So that's very, very nominal. So essentially you as an investor choose, do I have a demat account? Do I not have a demat account? I choose ETF or fund of funds. there are two options, as I said, in terms of interest options, tenure time horizons. One is a 5 year. So if you're a shorter term investor, you can look at the 2025. If you're a longer term investor, you can look at the 2031.
Now coming to the existing Bharat Bond ETF which were launched in December. So how has been investors' experience over there? And since these are ETFs and Indian ETF market is not that liquid, so how has been the experience of investors in terms of liquidity and also the overall returns in these ETFs?
So I think returns have been very, very good. I think when we started, interest rates was 7.5% and 6.5% in the 2023 and 2030. The returns have been much higher than that. So I would not go by that because interest rates have fallen. So people have done very, very well. If you look at the NAVs, they're fantastic. I think for this series, please use the guidance I mentioned, 5.5% and 6.5%. That's important. The second thing that is good is that liquidity has been very high. When you invest in a mutual fund instrument and in a debt instrument, you want to be able to get your money back comfortably and quickly. This trades on the exchange, and we've seen that on the exchange, the trading volumes have been between 3.5 and 4 crores in each series, much higher than GSEC ETFs, which are 1 to 2 lakhs. Larger investors above 25 crores have come directly to the AMC for subscription and redemption. And even then, we've had days where we're doing 750 crores of redemption or subscription a day, and that is happening comfortably. So I just want to tell investors that because this is the most liquid segment of the market, liquidity has not been an issue, even in the most difficult bond market conditions.
And one last question from my end before we move to the questions from the audience. This is an often question, who should be investing in Bharat Bond ETF? Whether it's good for a young investor or a retired investor, what place it has in one's portfolio?
So I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's a wholesome all kind of category product. It should be part of your core debt allocation. And if you're looking to invest in debt as a part of your asset allocation, please do look at this. It's obviously a debt product, so it's a conservative investment product. But whether you're young or whether you're old, debt finds a place in your asset allocation. It is not meant for a trading investor necessarily. It's meant for a hold to maturity investor. Trading you can do in the long-term ones if you want to take a call on duration, but it's really meant for a hold to maturity investor. You'll find it most effective. I also wanted to mention that we do launch a consistent series of these. So we've done 23, 25, 30, 31. So over time, you can use Bharat Bond for all your debt needs. Depending on your goals, you just buy the Bharat Bond that matches your maturity. So you can ladder your whole portfolio and fulfill all your goals with Bharat Bond with the different range of options that it has.
Right. And one last question, Radhika, before we move to the audience questions. Since this is an ETF, index has a very important place. So what is the relationship between the ETF and the index, and how the index is constructed for Bharat Bond ETFs?
So the ETF has to replicate the index within SEBI guidelines. Now in equity ETFs, if anyone is familiar with them, you replicate the index exactly. In bond ETFs, you have to replicate the characteristics of the index, the duration, the credit quality, the fact that it is CPSC. The index has a defined criteria. So you include only AAA rated CPSCs who have more than 100 crores outstanding of bonds of that maturity, at least within 12 months. So that is the criteria. The index is rebalanced every quarter.
Thank you. So now we move to questions from the audience. There are a couple of questions. I'll take your favorite question first on gilt funds. So the question is, recently gilt funds have given very high returns. So will it continue giving this kind of return in future?
No, the short answer is no. All debt instruments which had duration, whether it's Bharat Bond 2030 or gilt funds, have given very high returns in the last year because interest rates have fallen by about 1%. The average gilt fund has a duration of 7 to 8% plus. So if you just think about the simple maths, if interest rates have fallen 1%, the gilt fund has earned 7% in capital appreciation plus the coupon. So don't use, and I see a lot of investors jumping from other funds to gilt funds, it's almost like jumping from a frying pan into a fire. Because remember, gilt funds have duration risk, and they are not target maturity funds where the duration keeps coming down. They have duration risk. So please don't invest in gilt funds thinking you're going to get 15%. We are now actually at a point where interest rates have fallen. If interest rates rise 1%, your gilt fund might give negative returns also.
Just a follow-up to this now. Under what conditions would debt funds give lower returns?
So debt funds, it depends on the kind of debt fund, right? If you're holding very short maturity return debt funds, then you're going to earn whatever the 3-4% net YTM is. But if you're holding long-term debt funds and interest rates rise, and you can figure this out, right? What is duration? If there's a 1% rise in interest rates, that's the kind of hit that you're going to take. So if there is a substantial rise in interest rates, the average debt fund could give negative returns for that period if it's a long maturity fund. Some debt funds are structured like Bharat Bond, where at least for hold to maturity, you don't have this problem.
There's one question which you briefly touched upon, but it is worth answering it again. So what is the difference between Bharat Bond ETF and some of the banking and PSU debt funds which are there in the market today?
So
or even corporate bond funds for that?
Yeah, so bank PSU, and I'll do both separately. Bank PSU and corporate bond are generic categories. Now, bank PSU largely is funds with a 2 to 3 year maturity. Okay, so that will be very different in any case from the 5 and 10 year Bharat bonds. Very few bank PSU funds have 10-year maturity. In fact, I think Edelweiss is the only one that has that. So yields are going to be significantly lower. Bank PSU, in addition to PSU, can hold banks, and 20% can be outside the bank PSU universe. So just remember that. Bank PSU funds have duration of 2 to 3. They don't have this hold to maturity kind of structure. And obviously bank PSU funds are going to be more expensive than Bharat Bond, at least 30 to 40 basis points. So your net YTM will probably look a lot lower. Same story for corporate bond funds. But corporate bond funds, the universe can be even wider because corporate bond funds can have corporate paper also, and it can be AA and AAA.
The next question is on the interest rate. So we have seen RBI has cut rates drastically, and interest rates are lower at the moment compared to a year back. So is it a good time to invest in Bharat Bond ETF? What if interest rate goes up from here?
So this is always a question, and look, it's very hard for any investor to digest when you were getting 8 to get 7 and when you were getting 7 to get 6. I don't know where interest rates will stand, but I think India could spend some time being a low interest rate environment just because of COVID and the economy and all the things that are happening. Now, if you are an hold to maturity investor in Bharat Bond, you don't need to worry about your interest rate because you're holding to maturity. There could be mark-to-market fluctuations that are happening, but you're going to not have negative or poor returns over that period. So I think if you're a hold to maturity investor, in any case, this question doesn't arise. Did I complete your question, Niranjan? Yeah.
Yes, there's one more, just a follow-up question to this. What is the view on interest rate? Whether they will remain low, or do you expect interest rates to sharply go up over the next 1 or 2 years?
See, this is something that is difficult to analyze, and it is a function of global interest rates also. Right now, globally, we are in a low rate environment. Things are in any case tricky because of COVID and the shape of the economy. So can we be in a low interest rate environment for a while? You can, and you've seen that before. I also wanted to make one more point on this topic, that for the 10-year, the 2031 Bharat Bond, and this, we've done some analysis that even if there's a 75 basis point rise in interest rates over 3 years, your 6.7 ka return still ends up being about 6%. So the impact, if you're holding for 3 years on a 10-year portfolio, is not that high if interest rates rise.
Right. There's one question on why should I invest in Bharat Bond when I can directly buy PSU bonds to match my duration, or the same yields which are available there.
So that one is it's easier said than done. I think if you have to buy PSU bonds mostly from the market, the minimum lot sizes are very high, often as high as 10 lakhs. the taxability is not going to be as favorable as Bharat bond. And remember, single bond exposure is always less optimal than diversified exposure. We also did a comparison with a very popular instrument called tax-free bonds of the same maturity. And I think if you compare of the same issuer, Bharat bond 5-year is about 50 bips better than a tax-free bond, and Bharat bond 11-year is about 1% better than a tax-free bond.
Right. I mean, this is a very basic question, but I've seen it coming couple of times. What is the difference between Bharat bond and CPSE ETF and Bharat 22 ETF, which were launched 2-3 years back?
Okay, so the commonality is they're all Government of India promoted projects. The difference and the big difference is Bharat 22 and CPSE are equity focused ETFs. So you're investing in the stock of companies. Here you're investing in the bonds. So outside of the fact that they're both government promoted and related to PSUs, they're completely different in tone and structure. I would not compare. It's like, what is the difference between buying the stock of PFC and the bond of PFC?
All right. There's one question on whether I should invest in ETF or a FOF. What are the difference and which one is preferred over the other?
This is a very nice question. I think it depends on you. Look, if you are someone who is comfortable with an ETF, has a demat account, prefers to transact on the exchange, wants to do intraday transactions, you can do the ETF. Liquidity is there, there's no challenge. If you are someone who's like a traditional mutual fund investor, wants things not in your demat account but in your MF folio, so I think if you're a stock type of investor, pick the ETF. If you're a person who doesn't want to deal with the exchange and just wants to behave like a mutual fund, doesn't want a demat account, then pick the FOF. We have investors in both.
There are some questions on whether we can do SIP or SWP or STP from Bharat bond ETF or FOF.
So you can use the FOF structure for all these mutual fund like features. You can SIP in, you can SWP in, you can do all of that. In fact, those who are looking for regular income may want to consider the fund of funds, let 2-3 years of returns build up and then start doing a recurring SWP, or maybe 6% or 5% or something like that.
Very interesting question. Someone is already invested in Bharat bond ETF earlier series. Why should he be investing in the newer series, which is 2031 versus 2030? Rather, he can just buy, the existing units of 2030. Why he should invest in NFO?
Good question. I think one edge, and they're very similar series, so I'm not going to dispute that. And I'm glad you're an existing investor. The only benefit you get in the NFO is that if you look at the 2030 series, for good, because they're in demand, they tend to trade at some premium. In fact, the 2030, I think, has always been at a premium. In the NFO, you're going to get it at par. So you can buy it after the NFO, you can buy the 2030. I think the 2031 yield is a little better than 2030 and the 2030 has some premium. So it might be just a little more cost effective to buy it in the NFO.
Next question is around indexation. While you have explained indexation, someone just wants to know it in more detail and how much, if you calculate the current index yield, one should expect post-tax in 2025 or 2031.
Sure. So let's just do this math once again. Let's start with the 2031, 6.5%, which is what I pulled off the website, minus 4%, which is the assumed rate of inflation. That's 2.5%. On 2.5%, 20% tax. So that's 0.5. So you're paying 0.5% of tax per year. So 6.5 minus 0.5 is 6% after tax a year. I think that's about 1.5% better than an FD, by the way. Okay, let's do the other one. 5.5 minus 4, 1.5 times 20. So that's 0.3%. So 5.5 minus 0.3. So that's 5.2% a year. So 5.2 and 6.
Right. There's one question on CPSE bonds. Has we ever seen any default by any government-owned companies? How safe CPSE bonds are in terms of extreme, situation? How bad they can be?
So I don't think AAA rated CPSE is default. I was looking at a study that CRISIL had done, and over the last 5 years, the NCDs or the bonds of no AAA rated CPSEs have even been downgraded. Forget default. Some bank facility news I think I've seen of some downgrade, but the NCDs of any AAA rated CPSEs, which is what you're investing into, have not been downgraded in the last 5 years. Also, guys, do remember this is a Government of India initiative. So while Edelweiss is the asset manager, it is an initiative of Finance Ministry to bring in retail participation. So it's one where the government also tends to be very careful about what retail customers get.
I think so. We have taken most of the questions, Radhika. Any concluding thoughts around Bharat Bond ETF and in general, what one should be cautious about while investing in debt funds?
I would just leave you with 2 points. One is that, when you're investing now, it's a low interest rate environment, and we have the tendency of interest rate come milta hai that let's stretch for more, let's do this, let's do that. Don't try to do that. Don't compromise in debt. It is safety, liquidity, and returns in that order. And don't compromise on the order just to get a little more returns because you're feeling bad that, there is no difference between 5.5 and 5.4 except the mental anchoring in our head. So don't let that get to you. As far as Bharat Bond, I think it's a labor of love for us. It's a product that was very successful in its first tranche. And I think it combines the best features of a bond. It behaves like a bond. It is diversified like a mutual fund with the tax efficiency of a mutual fund. It's liquid and trades like an ETF, and it is super low cost. So it is a great product to explore, not just in this NFO, but on a going forward basis for all your debt investment needs. So thank you everybody for joining actually in such large numbers as I see.
Thank you all. I think so we can conclude our session here, and thank you so much. The Bharat Bond ETF NFO closes tomorrow. We wish you all be part of this journey and invest in Bharat Bond ETF program. Thank you so much again for participating. Have a great day. Stay safe. Thank you.